So, welcome to another edition of the Punk CX podcast. Today, I'm delighted to welcome Ty Givens to the podcast. Big wave to Ty. Ty is the founder and CEO of CX Collective and helps support leaders in fast growth environments and also build operations that don't burn people out, more importantly. As a result, one of the primary things that she focuses on is on the employee experience behind the service experience. With over 20 years leading CX strategy and operations for high growth brands, Ty specializes in helping companies transform customer support from a reactive service channel into a proactive growth engine through smarter systems, strategic leadership, and future-ready technology like automation and AI. Ty.
Yes.
Welcome to the podcast. How are you doing?
I am really good, and I'm glad to be here. How are you?
I am splendid. Now, I did that intro, but I always like to ask people after I've done the intro, anything that I missed out that you'd like our listeners to know?
That we have a second part of our business that focuses on developing playbooks for leaders. So I think that's worth mentioning. There's consulting, of course, and then there's also the other side of it, which is like a DIY sort of opportunity.
Awesome. Well, maybe we can talk about that through through our conversation. If not, we'll point people in the right direction if they want to find out more.
That sounds good.
So, here's the thing. So we were talking recently in the setup of this podcast, and you mentioned a number of things that I thought it would be good to explore on the podcast, as I thought listeners might benefit from hearing your POV, apparently is the lingo, your perspective. Now, the first thing that you said that I wanted to explore is that you said you often step into organizations where emotional labor and systems thinking are missing from the top. Now, as soon as you said that, the systems thinking bit, I was like, well, that's my jam. That's the thing. And so I wanted to get you to kind of explain some of that, both the emotional labor and the systems thinking kind of bit, because I'm a big fan of systems thinking. So can you help me understand what you mean by that and what happens when these things are missing?
Yeah. So, as you mentioned, I've been in this support industry for 20 plus years, actually 25 years, and I'm only 25. So how about that? You see, that's how it works.
That's heroic. That's heroic.
Boom, answering calls. So in that space, what I've learned, back from when I started, it's a totally different world. A lot of times companies misconstrue the customer service aspect of their business with just the person who's nicest to customers or the one that customers love the most.
Right.
And what I think they miss is that once you start to grow and scale, being nice is not actually the remedy that you think it is to a great customer experience. Being proactive is. Right. So when we talk about systems thinking, if I'm the nicest person on the team and I have no operational background, then as the team grows, the scope of work will outgrow me.
Okay.
So I see that a lot. And then also as the team grows, the emotional labor becomes much bigger, right? Because not only am I doubting myself as a leader, right? Because I don't know what I don't know. And there's
right. Okay.
Right. I'm being asked to do things that I don't know. That frustration in my doubting of myself can manifest itself in the way that I interact with and engage with my frontline team.
Okay.
So now we have this compounding issue of me not feeling like I'm good enough, like me feeling like I can't do enough, compounded with the ever-changing expectation of the role, me wanting to hold on to this role because I've never been in this position before. And what does that mean for the frontline who feels like I can't even go to my boss because she's too busy?
Right.
There's in a lot of companies that I've worked in, that happens a lot. And it's because the expectations from the executive level, they don't understand what it takes to actually do those things. And if you have a leader in place who also doesn't understand what it takes to do those things, you're building your house on sand.
And so this probably manifests itself, like you were saying, in teams that are within a high growth environment. Yeah. So like startups, scale ups, those sort of things. Yeah. And so what should leaders or aspirant leaders or new leaders be doing to try and grow, to keep up to grow with the to keep up with the growth of their scope, if you like?
Yeah. First thing is to be okay with understanding that although the company's hired you in that role and the company believes that you're the one person who's supposed to do it all, you're probably not enough to do everything that they're expecting.
Okay.
Leaders are often required to be in the past, present, and future and focus on people, process, and technology. And if you try to do all those things at once, it's kind of like me trying to answer a chat while I'm talking to you. And I think that experience will teach you that you need to communicate what you need in order to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that could be an additional resource. So, for example, I've oftentimes been hired as the operational leader that matures an organization. A lot of times you come in and you do that, and you don't have the financial support to grow the team. So you can't add to headcount. But what you can do is take the resources that you have within that team and start to allocate them to different parts of the business where you can get a bigger ROI than if they were on the phones or
Okay.
if they were doing emails or chats. So you look for someone to help you with quality so you can improve how you're engaging with customers. You look for someone who might have a knack for statistics and ask them to help you with some workforce management or planning around that. You might have someone who is a good teacher and you want to have them help with training. So you can find those resources within the team, repurpose them, right? And maybe you're not answering, an additional, call it 200 tickets a day, but maybe through those roles, you're reducing your tickets by 300 a day, right? So
Yeah.
you have to think on the ROI side.
I mean, one thing that strikes me as well. I mean, and this is a story from a guy who was a player in the large enterprise space, particularly in the transformation space. There was a guy, and this is one of these stories that I learned years and years ago from somebody that I met and had on the podcast. I met him at a vendor event, and he was running a business, and he's a brilliant Dutch guy called Martijn Gribnau, and he had a very interesting way of working, and he said, well, particularly when he went to interview for something, and I mean, he was a veteran of a lot of large enterprise transformational kind of efforts, and very successful at it. And when they were about to say, when he interviewed for it, when he was about to offer, they were offering the role. He said, "Look, here's the thing I need to make clear to you. He says, this is how I operate. If you don't like it, don't hire me."
Yeah.
And he said, "Look, I broadly," he said, I what I tend to do is I tend to try and work as an intern for a month before I start any role, because then helps me understand the organization, and you understand the kind of levers that you can kind of pull or what's available to you.
Yep.
Because you see it from an it's an unsanitized perspective, let's say. He said then when he goes in, he says he splits his time 3 ways. He says he spends a third of his time hanging out with people on the front line,
Okay.
to properly understand kind of what's kind of going on. He spends then another third of his time wondering about the business to actually understand how the business works. And then he says, and then I spend the final third of my time doing the stuff that sits on your job description.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, that's the way I work. And if you don't like it, don't hire me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what's interesting about that for me is it takes a very systems thinking sort of approach, it seems to me, because it understands that we don't operate in isolation.
Yep.
And actually we're part of a system. And actually to understand that, you actually, to better understand how you operate within that system, you would be well suited to try and carve out the time. And this is the important kind of bit, I guess, is carving out the time to try and understand the system that you're in, to allow you to figure out how to operate more effectively within that system.
You know what that gentleman has on his side that a lot of leaders don't have? He has 2 things, I think.
Okay.
One is the confidence to say that. The second thing is the experience to know what's necessary to build success.
Yeah.
And then when you're coming in or you're promoted internally, he didn't start out that way. No one is
Yeah.
going from phones to leadership and then saying, oh yeah, no, I got this. I'm gonna carve out. They have no idea. They're on that hamster wheel.
Yeah.
And like for me, when one of the reasons I went into consulting, there's a lot of reasons, but one of them is that I got every job that I interviewed for.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that part of the reason why I got every job I interviewed for is because I never went in there wondering if I was if I could win them over. I couldn't care less about winning them over.
There
The
you go.
question, can I work here? Do I want to work here? Tell me about your culture. I read the job description. I know what you guys are about, but tell me, I know what you're looking for. Tell me about what it's like to be in there. And
Mhm.
I love this approach of saying, like, I'm going to split my time. Sometimes people have the ability to do that. Sometimes you kind of get in and then you figure it out, right?
Yeah.
But if I feel that if you and the reason why I'll say this, that I can say, do I want to work here, and let that be the lever, not do you want to hire me? Of course you
Yeah.
guys want to hire someone, but do I want to work here?
Indeed.
It comes from the confidence of, one, knowing that I know what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
Two, I know what they need. The main question is, can I be successful in this environment? A lot
Yep.
of workplaces are interesting, to say the least.
Well, that's a kind word, and a very generous word. But I think you makes a great point. I mean, I know that the Mr. Gribnau's sort of example is an extreme example, and
Yeah.
it's based on experience and confidence and just his very nature. He's like, well, meh, I don't care, and that's great, and it's brilliant if you have that. But I think that pretty much 99% of the people would turn around and go, that's not for me.
Yeah.
But I think for me, the real insight from that is if you dilute and dilute and dilute and dilute all that down, it's a bit like, can you create the space to go and explore and to find out and to build connections within your kind of like system and things to help you better understand how things operate, and whether that's 1 or 2 hours a week or a lunch with somebody or a cup of coffee in the morning or whatever it might be, is like, because a lot of people get into jobs and then they're like head down doing their thing, and they don't realize like, oh, you're part of a system, and actually you are figuring out how to build those connections. And building that connections and building your understanding of that will ultimately help you.
100%. I know, just in transparency, that I have been guilty of going in with my head down.
Mm-hmm.
And it comes from, well, there's two reasons. One is that I go in, I have gone in to companies. This is as an employee, not as a consultant, but going in, and then you've inherited a mess.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think I'm trying to clean out my own closet before I go step into someone else's.
Mm-hmm.
And that can cause me to have my head down, especially if you're stepping in and there's no one else that you can really delegate to just yet, because they don't even understand what to do. So it is difficult to go in and keep it broad when they've been waiting for someone to walk in the door to hand you that pile of issues that need to be worked through. A lot of times they're hiring you far after they have the need.
Mm-hmm. Oh no, I think so. I think it's right, and I'm not saying this is easy by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, I think that, but I think it's if you step into that leadership role, it's imperative that one, you look after yourself, 2, you deliver, and 3, that you build your knowledge and the connections of things around. And the only resource that you have that's available to you is your time.
Oh boy. So yes, and let's talk about time, because that, I think, is one of the signs that a leader has burned out, is they don't have time. And it could be a small thing of not even having time to think, right? Carving out time to think. I have a playbook on time management, and one of the things I talk about is take time to actually think. And it's funny to be in a space of telling others what to do, how consultant of me, and not doing the things that I should be doing, which are those same things.
Sure.
So I just came off of a stint before this previous weekend of 5 weeks of some daily work, and I was exhausted. And I decided on last Friday, I said, you know what? No, I'm going to stop. I don't care what comes in. I've got to just clear my mind. And taking that pause, so many questions and things that I had been working through, I started to get answers to. Some of the processes I was stuck on, I started getting, I was able to work through it, because taking just that beat to think matters a lot. And it's also tying into that ROI conversation we had just a moment ago. You taking that time to process and think, the return on that is far more significant than you being on that hamster wheel.
Absolutely. And that neatly brings us to the next thing I wanted to talk about, because sort of linked, because you talk about when people see burnout or churn or performance dipping and inconsistency and all that sort of stuff, and a lot of people go like, let's buy some tools.
Yeah.
Because tools are the answer.
They do say that. Yeah.
They chase the tools to try and reduce kind of employee churn and inconsistency. But actually, you were like going, actually, no, you hold on, there's a better way, right? There has to be a better way, or you believe there is a better way, rather than just jumping on the tools. I mean, and so I wanted to ask you to sort of help me understand kind of like your perspective on that too.
Definitely. So you're right. I mean, marketing is a beast, right? You see this ad that tells you that exactly your problem is going to be solved if you do this one thing. So now you're like, let me buy this tool. And then you get the tool and you realize not only do you have to understand how it works, but you have to focus on trying to implement it. You have to teach other people how to use it. Then you have to go through the change management process for your team and how this impacts them. And it can be a complete nightmare, when in reality, a lot of times the issue is really with your process. And the tool, even if you implement it, if your process is broken, your tool is just going to further exacerbate that. You don't want that.
Yeah.
So my belief is that you have to look at the processes. Like if we start to work with a company, I literally start at like, what are your policies if you have them? What did you put on the website? Right. And then what did you tell your team that they could do above that? And then how does your team actually execute that? So I go through this series of questions, and then I'm looking at how does your system support that? Now, if we find that the systems can't support it and the process is key and critical, then we may entertain either readjusting how that system works, and seeing if the capability is there, or do we need to fit in another system? But that's far down the line, instead of just adding another tool to the list. And believe you me, anyone who has worked with me knows that I am a tooth gal. So if I've gone down the road of deciding to get another tool, it's because I have clearly identified there's a gap in the process that this tool is necessary for. But I always, always, always start with processes.
I mean, that reminds me of a story that that I learned, and it was about, in the midst of all of this, the excitement around, let's call it excitement. Let's not call it hype. Let's call it excitement around kind of artificial intelligence, particularly around generative AI and now agentic AI. One support leader went, we can use this. We can use agent sort of assist technology, or we can build this RAG system to put all our policies kind of in to help kind of like provide quick fire answers to agents, so they're well equipped. They did all that, set it all up. The agents didn't use it. You know why? Because the recommendations were garbage, and they were like going, wonder what, and they unpicked it all, and they figured it out. They asked the kind of agents kind of like, so what was wrong with the suggestions? Like, they were wrong.
Yep.
They were like making wrong policy recommendations, wrong this, they're wrong that, wrong whatever it might be. And what they didn't realize, because this is the assumption that people often kind of make, is that the policies that you have in place and your documentation to support all of that and the knowledge base and everything else, that it's good.
Yeah.
But actually, what we need to realize with many of these systems is like, if you put garbage into it, then you're going to get garbage out of it.
So true.
And so they had to go and just go, and what didn't account for is that this situation had been like that for a long time, and the agents just knew how things worked
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
they had biological supercomputers in their heads.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they were working with each other and sort of figuring kind of things out, and then that was their networked intelligence, as it were. But the big assumption when people were trying to make things better was the assumption there was that, oh, the processes that we use and the policies and the documentation that we have and all the knowledge that we have, oh, it's all great. So we put it into you, it's going to be fine. And you're like going, no. So like, be careful of assumptions.
That's so true. That's so true. I feel like AI exposes how well we communicate as humans, especially if you're plugging in a prompt. You have something in your mind that I might say, take this list and turn it into a table with column one reading, X, column two, Y, column three, Z. And then I get it back and I'm like, well, that's not what I meant. And it actually caused me to think about how I communicate expectations to people. When I get something back that I didn't intend, it's forcing me to look at myself and identify that maybe I'm not doing this right, because literally it will do exactly what you ask. So if you have all of those systems or the documentation in place, but it's not organized properly, it's just gonna find the information and present it. And then that's that. And it's really important that when you're rolling out these different products and tools, that you bring your team along on the journey too, so
Yeah.
that they're part of it, because otherwise it's going to feel to them like, yeah, see, that's why we don't need to go that route. Instead of understanding, if you're teaching the AI how to function, that then becomes your role. So you have a place here. Once AI starts to operate and do the logic-based things, if that's what your job is, then that's when things are called into question. The question is, what are you gonna do? So my opinion, my recommendation is make sure that you're leveraging AI to work for you so that you don't end up working for AI.
Yeah, no, perfect. I mean, can I go back to the kind of process sort of thing, where you started with process rather than starting with tools? And I
Yeah.
wanted to understand is like, how do you surface that? Because oftentimes there's like a process document somewhere that
Yeah.
sits on a server somewhere, or possibly in a file if they still print things out. And there's often the way that people say things are done, and then the way that things are done.
Yeah.
So how do you go about surfacing kind of that? To almost to if you like, to almost shine a light in all the dark corners to make sure that you have a clear picture.
We do a lot of screen shares. So we'll actually sit and watch agents work quietly. And then we'll compare that to what the documentation says. And there's often, like you said, there's something that's amiss. And it's not because the agent is going rogue, it's because they found a better way to do it. And in finding a better way to do it, they may or may not have the avenue in which to escalate or communicate, hey, I found a better way to do this. Let's update the process. Instead, what you get is the I'm going to share my process with the person next to me, who's going to share it with the person next to them, who's going to share it with the person next to them. And you never actually get anything updated.
Yeah.
When you're trying to use those processes for AI, the job, then most people become knowledge management people.
Yeah.
Right? Because then you have to continuously update your documentation. So I think that if we start start the process in a way where people are sharing information openly, and that we have one source of truth, we're going to all be in a better place. But that is a shift in what our world has always been. Support has always been about being, efficient, right? Being the best at your job, getting high CSAT, impacting that NPS score. And it hasn't necessarily, unless you're on the operations side, been about enabling other people to do the work that you do in the same way.
Yeah.
And so we're seeing things move towards the agent now being the knowledge management person who actually informs the AI agent, right? They're becoming managers. They're becoming supervisors to
Yep.
these agents.
What's fascinating is that this is not necessarily often talked about, but particularly when you have all these systems and platforms and tools that people are using increasingly in service and support, is the nature of enterprise software is fundamentally changing.
Yeah.
Normally it would be a case of like you do your research, you come up with a short list, you invite people to RFP, you do a whole bunch of demos, blah 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 blah, and you pick one, and you're like, it was like, yeah, great. And then you
Yeah.
have some training and do the onboarding, do the installation, and then you're off and kind of running. You've got access to a success person, but then and some help function, so on and so forth. And then there's your QBRs. That's how it was, right?
Yep.
Now it's like that, but also it requires an internal team as well to set things up and to monitor and to manage and to QA kind of a lot of this sort of like stuff. And that just feels, I mean, it's like to your point around knowledge management is like, I remember talking to Adrian McDermott across at Zendesk a while ago. Well, a few months ago. He's the CTO at Zendesk, and he said, if AI is the next industrial revolution, then knowledge is the coal. Which I really liked, actually. To your point, but I think that the nature of the role around gathering, curating, creating the data, whether it's knowledge articles, to be able to put this, and then managing the systems in itself, and traditionally service and support hasn't really done that. It's more about being super responsive at the point of kind of demand and knowledgeable and efficient and effective and all these different sort of things. Yeah. And now it's a bit like, no, there's all this other kind of work that needs to get done as well. And the role is kind of changing. So, I mean, I think it's fascinating and it's a real struggle, but there's the one thing that makes me think there's an explosion of startups. Everybody's kind of trying to be the next big thing or whatever in this sort of space. And many there are being successful and are growing fast, but because I know that because you're working in that sort of space where with fast growing companies, and you also talked to me before about this idea that you work with a lot of companies that are fast growing, but are often structurally shaky.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. I mean, it's a bit like if you got this fast moving car, it's a bit like you're asking them to change their tire without slowing down.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm a bit like, how does that work? How do you get that? How do you do that?
Well, okay, so I talked about watching how teams work. You'd be surprised at the small tweaks that you can make that will give massive efficiency.
Okay.
And it could be something as small as the way that their help desk is set up. And by help desk, I mean a Zendesk, a Gorgias, and Intercom.
Right.
They're not properly using auto replies.
Right.
It could be something that small where you're saying, hey, if someone is saying, I need to return something, just reply to them with the return policy and the link to the return portal.
Right.
And solve the ticket out. It's little details like that that will collapse the inbound volume in a very significant way. This was a while back, but Thrive Cosmetics was a client of mine, and I feel like they were on Help Scott in some areas and Gorgias in others. And one of the things that we did back then was I just looked at what the tickets or the messages were about, and the ones that were just straightforward, I just auto replied. Now today we have AI, so AI would handle that, but we didn't have that at that time. It wasn't a thing. It's something that we had to figure out. So a lot of times what we'll do is just look at how they're working without changing anything and spend like maybe the first maybe a week or so just identifying small wins that won't change their process. But those small wins have huge impact. And what they also do with our ability to work with them is it gets them to trust that we know what we're doing.
Yeah.
So now we have to make these bigger changes. They understand it. We fly planes that are flying in the air all the time. All the time. There are things that we just work on behind the scenes. We can revamp an entire Zendesk instance without them ever feeling it on the front end until we're ready to train them on it.
Right.
So the way that you do that is you build in a separate instance. It's not like rocket science or anything like that, but you build in a separate instance. We have our demo environment. We can do all of our testing. We get team members from our clients to test with us. We make it what they want by having the team members a part of the conversation. Then what are they doing? They're socializing it with the team. Oh, you just wait until this comes. It's going to be so cool. They know how to work it. So now we've got boots on the ground.
Yeah.
We can actually handle it. So I feel like that approach has worked for us. And I think I have that mindset because I have worked inside of companies as an employee where they were growing so significantly that I couldn't break anything in order to repair it. I just had to fix it as we went along.
And I think that if you circle back to the kind of the leader kind of point around time and things,
Yeah.
and I think that's the again, it's the added responsibility of leaders, because many leaders they get promoted into positions of responsibility, and then the training comes afterwards.
Yeah.
And then
you get any training.
Yeah, if you get any training, indeed. But I think the thing that seems to be what you're saying is that, regardless of where you're kind of at and how mature your operation kind of might be, there are probably going to be some things that you can notice that are your quick wins. To your point from earlier was that you have to create that space to be able to notice or to identify those kind of quick wins. And whether that's you're using tools to help you identify kind of patterns or kind of things to do that, or you're just sitting and listening and watching and figuring things out, speaking to people and consulting them on where the common snags kind of might be.
Yeah.
But it's your point. It's like rather than going maybe kind of head down, sometimes you've got to realize that you can't just be head down all the time. Sometimes you have to kind of look up and actually look around. And that's your role and your responsibility to, one, look after your team, but also continue to improve their environment.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's because as you say, you can do that without losing momentum.
You can, but it's, part of the reason why I had worked out, the playbooks that I have, I used to call them trainings. And then I realized that it's not necessarily training. It is like a real-time how-to. So for example, if you're struggling with time management and, the conversation sounds good around time management, but you're like, I don't even know how to start. That's what the playbooks are about. It's the concept of it, how other companies might use it, and then more specifically, how you can use it. So I get you thinking about application, applying these theories into practice right now so you can see how it works for you.
Yeah.
And then walk away with something tangible. So if you're struggling with, how to get started, the main thing is to basically make use of resources that are available to you. And you take what you need and you leave the rest, right?
Yeah.
So if you're like, that doesn't apply to me, then don't worry about it. But if there's a part of it that does apply, it could really help you, because I feel that, and I'm speaking for myself. I always say I developed these playbooks for me at 24 when I was first running and managing a team. The whole idea is that it's okay for me to not know. So it's okay for anyone to not know. That doesn't make you a bad leader. They're just systems and circumstances you've never been a part of. To lean on somebody who does know, and you don't have to do it exactly their way. Take what they're giving you and leave the rest. And those are the things that I try to give back to people. Is I've been down that road. Don't make that left. But if you do make that left, here's how you get back on course.
Right. Perfect.
Yeah.
So we talked about a bunch of things, and I thought it might be useful, Ty, if you can, is to maybe share an example of a brand that you're working with or have worked with where you've employed this type of approach. It's almost it describes the environment. Tell us what you kind of did, and tell us what kind of happened, kind of thing, just to sort of just to bring it all to life.
Yeah. So one client is Brighton Collectibles. They have both online presence and they have retail stores. You'll find them shopping strips, or you'll find them in airports. we've been working with them. I think this is the second year, could be coming up on the third year, which is kind of crazy to say, but they've been lovely. And I think that they're a good example of building the plane while it's flying, because when we started with them, as I mentioned, they were on one help desk and we switched them to a completely new help desk 1 month before their busiest season, which
Okay.
is, obviously Q4
Yeah.
holiday season. And I can't say that it was completely seamless, but what I can say is that it was effective and it was efficient. And a lot of that came from just understanding how they work. Um, for anyone who is consulting, who listens to this, there's no such thing, in my opinion, at least, as the right way to do anything. So when it comes down to it, I had to understand how they were working and what did they need from us in order to do their best work, even if I did not agree with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that because of that, we were able to see success. And like I said, they're still a client to this day. We adore them, and I feel like we do good work with them. And we are now in a rhythm where we take, 1 to 2 small projects every month and we iterate and execute on them and bring them along the journey. And we continuously improve.
And
And I
and
think that's what it's about.
and what has been the impact on some of the outcomes and things? I mean, have they been able to service more volume, or have they improved their FCR or their AHT or all these kind of good things? Has it all gone in the right direction?
Yeah, everything's going good. One of the big changes was reworking the way that their help center is set up,
Mm-hmm.
and rewriting those articles so that when someone uses the bot, it surfaces the right information.
Mm-hmm.
They are a unique company in that they have no desire to keep their customers from reaching out. They want their customers to reach out to them, and they're okay with it.
Right.
But one of the things that we do with that is we do give the customer the ability to solve their issue. So we've seen self-service increase by about 20%,
Mm-hmm.
which is really nice. So that's brought down some of the ticket volume for the agents as well.
Okay.
And what that does is it gives the agents the ability to focus on other things, because I listened to a previous episode of yours and you talked about how some company, I think 35% of companies are on legacy systems or older systems.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Brighton is one of them. They've had
Okay.
their systems have been in place for a long time. But the ability to get some of those requests handled by the customer themselves that don't actually come into them has given them the ability to still foster and work in the environment that they're used to without them feeling like they've stepped into a totally new world. But they are modernizing and they are much more efficient now, just from us looking at what are people searching for and updating something as simple as the tasks or the way that we're wording things on their help center.
Awesome. I think I know that brand, actually. I think they have a store in Las Vegas Airport.
They do. They do. Like they always send me gifts. This is from them. They send me handbags. They are so generous. And I every year I send them something too. They are lovely, lovely, wonderful people. Just genuine.
I am going to stop by that store next time I'm passing through Las Vegas Airport.
Please do.
Brilliant. So, Ty, that's it for my kind of like main questions. I mean, before I ask you some quick fire questions, anything that we've missed that you want to highlight, or shall we go into the quick fire questions?
Let's do the quick fire.
Perfect. Right. So I've got 3 for you.
Okay.
So first one is boiling everything down. I always ask for people to give me their best advice.
Yeah.
And the way I've been asking people to do that lately is to ask them to complete this sentence.
Yeah.
And the sentence is, if you want to improve your customer or employee experience, because I know that's your kind of like your focus. So let's actually remove the customer. Let's focus on the employee experience. If you want to improve your employee experience, Ty says, do this, ... Complete that sentence, Ty.
Well, I do think the employee experience ties into the customer experience.
100%.
I would say, listen to them, right? Listen to them. And listen to them with an open mind, even if you think you know better. And let them influence your processes, because everything is about the process. And at the end of the day, what you'll have is an advocate, someone or a few someones who understand your vision and are on your side and want to see you be successful in rolling out something. You've then increased their skill set. So you've helped them to achieve something new and different, give them something to put on their resume. And I think at the end of the day, that's a win. It's a win for
Awesome.
everyone.
Awesome. I would 100% agree with that. And it doesn't happen enough or
Yeah.
often enough.
Yeah.
And I always say to people that, people talk about all of this kind of technology and stuff. And I says, but you forget that you have a network of biological supercomputers right in front of you.
Yeah.
But oftentimes we don't leverage that.
Yeah.
That's a shame.
It's true.
Anyway, second question. And this is for a punk related one because it's the Punk CX podcast, obviously. So what company or brand do you think takes a more punk approach to customer experience and why?
So it's going to be cliche. And it's probably what most people would say. I'm not going to say Zappos, but very close. Amazon, and not because I think that they do the opposite of what most people tell you to do, which is be warm and fuzzy and be super engaging and make it easy for people to contact you. They don't actually do any of those things. They're very direct. It's very straightforward. In most cases, you're going to solve your own issue and you can't even find how to contact them 99% of the time. But when you do, they're very quick to resolve your issue in the most efficient and effective way. And I think the reason why I feel like that one is just it's different is because companies spend so much time, energy, and effort trying to differentiate the customer experience when that company is very successful and CX is not their strong suit. So,
I mean, I completely agree. I think the thing is what they do and I think this is fascinating, is they set expectations very clearly. They go, here's our channels. It's either the website or the app. And you have to be signed in so we know exactly who you are and all your history and everything else, and then ask away.
Yep.
And that's it. It's like, otherwise, you can't reach us.
Exactly.
And it's a bit like, and if you have a problem with that, well, go and suck your gums over there somewhere. It's like,
yeah. And I'm like, yeah, they are very just. There's not a lot of warm and fuzzy there. There's even the people that you talk to, because I don't always know if I'm talking to a real person or not, but they're not the most warm. They're not the most fuzzy. They have typos just like every other human. I know I'm famous for that, but it's it just feels relatable. It feels more like, hey, let me help you get this thing done than it is about trying to build, this experience. And although I help companies build experiences, I do try to remind them that at the end of the day, what somebody wants is to have their problem solved. That's it.
Do you want me to, I'll tell you a piece of trivia. So
Yeah.
CX trivia. If you put relentless.com into your browser, do you know where it goes?
No.
Amazon.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Tells you everything you need to know.
Interesting. I'm not mad at that. Direct.
There you go. There's a piece of CX trivia. I think it still works, but yeah, it's always when I tell people that and they're like, no. I'm like, yeah, that's kind of and that's obviously Jeff Bezos back in the day collecting kind of URLs and picking kind of one that you thought would work, but Relentless was obviously one of the ones he was thinking about.
How about that?
Final question before we wrap up, and I've been asking people to share with me a good news story because the world is weird right now, and there's a lot of doom scrolling going on, and it's a bit of a challenge sometimes to stay kind of positive. So I've been asking people to share a good news story with me. So Ty, tell me a good news story, please.
Good news, not in the news, but good news.
Okay.
My only niece, I have nephews, but niece just started her first day of college at Tuskegee University today. Yeah, and I am the proudest. Yes, I'm so happy for her. And she sent a photo to the group chat for me, my mom, and my sister. And she's like, I'm in my first class today. She's in her history class. And back in March, we took her to a campus tour. My boyfriend and I took her. And there was just this energy there where it made me want to go back to to college. I loved it so much. So I'm so excited for her because she was or is the first person in our family to actually go out of state for school.
Nice.
So I'm proud of her. So I'll have to tell her to have a listen to this. But yeah,
Well,
today's school. So that is good news for me.
so big shout out to
Yeah.
Ty's niece for on
Yes.
our first day of college. Now, this will go out while she's kind of well into her first kind of like semester sort of thing. But today, at the time of recording, which is the 20th of August,
Yep.
big congrats to Ty's niece.
Yes. Thank you so much.
And thank you for sharing that with me. And that's been great. And thank you for sharing your time and your insight and your expertise. And I doff my cap to you on the work that you do because it's important. It's down in the trenches and it's making things better for people, both customers and employees, which is awesome. So thank you so much.
Thank you. It's hard. It's a hard job sometimes, but I actually really love it. So I'm grateful for the opportunity and for anyone who's worked with me or given my company a chance. Like, we appreciate you so much. So thank you.
Perfect. Well, that's another interview in the bag. I just want to say a big thanks to Ty Givens for spending time and sharing her insights with me on everything from emotional labor to systems thinking and how to develop customer support in fast growth environments, but essentially how to build support that doesn't burn people out. I hope you enjoyed it. I know I did. Before we go, there's a couple of things I'd like to mention. Please consider heading to iTunes, Spotify, or your podcast platform of choice to where you listen to these interviews, and do leave a review because it really does help. Second thing, if you have any comments about any of the interviews I do or have any suggestions for topics that you'd like me to explore or people that I should interview, then feel free to send me an email to hello@punkcx.co.uk. One final thing, do head over to adrianswinsco.com if you want to find out more about how I work with clients in this sort of space. Anyway, that's all for now. Thank you for listening and do tune in again soon. All the very best.